Basically, it's just like driving a standard Boxster, but it's a lot faster when you put your foot down. My name's Tom, and I've built a Porsche Boxster 987 with an Audi S4 2.7 twin turbo engine. My friend's got an Audi S4, and so I know they're a good they got a good potential for tuning, and I knew it bolted to the Porsche gearbox. So I was only looking at Audi or Volkswagen engines because I knew they would bolt straight up. So that makes the conversion easier and cheaper. And then the V6 was the best for physically fitting inside the car. 530 horsepower and 540 foot-pound of torque at the flywheel. I've been on PistonHeads for ages, but I didn't post much. And initially, when I started the build for it, I didn't post it on PistonHeads, just because there's a lot of knowledgeable people, and I thought maybe I'd get ripped apart. But I did post it, and everybody seems to love it. I thought I'd get exposed as a charlatan, basically. I had a Porsche Boxster S 986, and I'd built that one, and it was a big single turbo, and it was mounted at the back of the gearbox. And just before I'd finished it, it caught fire, and it melted away, basically. It's okay, Daddy's car's being away. I'm not having fun either, Sophia. I've been building it for just over a year. I targeted a year, and projects always take longer than you expect. And I'd been on the dyno once. I'd had a few issues, and I'd fixed everything, and I was booked in to go back. And a week before that, it caught fire. It was kind of surreal, to be honest. I couldn't believe it was actually happening. And my daughter was there, so she probably stopped me from doing anything stupid, like taking parts off it, because I knew after a certain stage it was going to be written off and it was going to melt away. So I wanted to take parts off it, but I didn't go back to it. And she's traumatized. She's been to the cinema and watched Pinocchio, and there's a fire scene in it. She had to leave the cinema. When I built the second car, when it was ready to test drive, my bottle went, and I didn't really want to take it out, and I was sort of looking for reasons not to. Not in terms of driving it, in terms of if something goes wrong, I'd struggle to cope with a disaster twice. But since I've got this car, because it's slightly different inside, it's newer, it doesn't bring back memories, if you know what I mean. It doesn't trigger me as much as the other one did. The second stage was after the GoFundMe, and that was just sort of a basic build. So it was a standard engine in a standard car, and just sort of cobbling it together for as cheap as possible, just to get back up and running. It was overwhelming. I didn't really think anybody would care, to be honest. It's only posting it on a forum. And so when I posted up about the fire, I thought, that's the end of it, and I was done with cars. And so when the GoFundMe happened, I was overwhelmed. And the best thing about it is I didn't, because it happened so soon after the fire, I didn't sit around depressed and letting it bother me, because then I suddenly had a new target that I could go again. And so that changed my mindset. It was set up by, I don't know his username, I think he was called 8 Ball Rob, but he hadn't really posted much on the build thread, but he'd seen people sort of saying, oh, we should set something up, and he stepped in and basically said, I'll do it then. And yeah, got to thank him for that. Because my Boxster wasn't on the road properly, I didn't have a proper insurance policy on it. I just had the trade policy, so I'd added it onto that. It wasn't covered for fire. And what would happen, I'd work on it, I'd take it out for a test drive, something would break, it'd be off the road for a month whilst I fixed that, and it was a continual thing. So I never got a policy because I was waiting for it to be finished, be tuned, and then I was going to insure it for the full value. And that turned out to be a huge mistake. Massive mistake. The second Boxster that I had after the GoFundMe, that was initially built standard, and then I've modified it as time went on, because obviously I'd had an ambition for the first car, and so the plan was then to, slowly as I could afford it, sort of build back what I wanted the first time around. So it was a project that sort of lasted a few years, and then this is just a continuation of that, because I basically just reshelled that into this. So I just took all the parts out, swapped them over, and I'm still developing it. It seems to change every couple of weeks. I wouldn't be able to build this car again for the same costs, because I tend to try and find bargains. So I'll look for second-hand parts. I've got the Quaife differential second-hand. I've built my own brake setup. I've got Audi RS calipers on the front 8-piston Brembos, and then the rear calipers are Lotus Evora. I got my brake discs from Facebook. I buy a lot of my parts off eBay. The blue pipe that's in the engine bay that looks like it shouldn't be there, that is connected to a pair of ear defenders, and then at the other end is bolted to the engine, and it's so I can listen to the engine to make sure there's no knock when I'm tuning, because I still haven't finished all the tuning on it. The most satisfying part of the build probably sounds a bit strange, but it's the packaging. I've spent ages thinking of where I'm going to put things, and I've managed to not encroach on any of the luggage space. I've hidden things all over the place. Where the original CD changer would have been, which my car didn't have because it's a low spec, I've put my charge cooler tank, and then where the original battery was, I've put a small race battery, and I've got a tank for the methanol. My plan with the car is just to sort of button up all of the tuning stuff and iron out any problems, and then I'm going to try and do a few track days next year, go to shows, and just generally enjoy it as much as I can. If you want to read my thread in full, click the link on the screen now, or why not start your own whilst you're there. There's a few people I would like to thank for helping me with this project. First up, my wife Viviani for putting up with it. I'd like to thank Balja Gislason for helping me with the ECU and all the wiring side of things. James Bourne at Powerflex, Anthony at Indigo GT for the tuning and putting up with all the trouble it gave him on the dyno. Brad Roberts, Rob Scott and Adam Simmons. I'd like to thank Rob Cork for setting up the GoFundMe and everybody that contributed. Thank you guys. My father-in-law Valdemar for helping me with all of the brake modifications.